I can feel it burrowing deeper into my mind tonight. The doctors say it's just trauma, but they're wrong. They don't understand what's happening to me, to us. Listen closely, I don't have much time before they come back with more sedatives. What I'm about to tell you isn't just a story. It's a warning. 3 months ago, I watched 2 of my colleagues tear out their own breathing apparatus 200 feet underwater just to press their mouths against rotting flesh. Their eyes were alive with awareness as they drowned, and transformed. Even now, with steel walls and armed guards between me and the ocean, I can feel it calling, a low, pulsing vibration that rattles my bones and whispers promises in a language no human throat could produce. Sometimes I wake up standing at my locked door, my fingernails bloody from trying to claw my way out. The thing we found in the Mariana Trench wasn't just dead. It was never truly alive, at least not as we understand life. The ocean is a ravenous void that swallows secrets. Most marine biologists understand this. We catalog the predictable dance of life and death, but we never truly comprehend the abyssal darkness where our instruments fail and nightmares gestate. For centuries, scientists have studied leviathan falls, those colossal feasts where dead whales become ecosystems. The flesh surrenders to scavengers in a perfect cycle of consumption. But what we found in the Mariana Trench wasn't surrendering. It was hunting. 6 months ago, I led the Abyssal Research Initiative, a classified project funded by sources I now suspect weren't entirely governmental. My team, Vasquez with his perpetual nicotine stains, Keller's cold precision, and Chen's brilliant, restless mind, deployed to investigate an anomalous bioform christened Specimen Thanatos at depths our equipment could barely withstand. The pressure at that depth makes human bodies implode, blood boiling inside crushed bone. The darkness is absolute. Primordial. Something massive was waiting for us there. Our initial readings suggested a standard cetacean carcass. The surveillance feed showed familiar patterns, sleek sharks tearing ribbons of blubber, translucent hagfish slithering through viscera, bone-eating worms creating delicate lacework of the remaining skeleton. I remember Keller's face bathed in the blue glow of the monitors, the beads of sweat despite the freezing temperature of our research vessel, the Cassandra. "Everything's proceeding within normal parameters," she whispered, but her quivering hand betrayed her. Deep down, we all sensed something was wrong. On the 13th day, Chen burst into my cabin at 3:17 a.m., eyes wild, clutching printouts of thermal imaging data. "It's not decomposing," she rasped, voice cracking. "It's transforming." The footage showed something I still see when I close my eyes. The scavengers weren't consuming Thanatos, they were being absorbed. Their bodies melded into the Leviathan's flesh, still moving, still aware. The massive cavity in its left flank that had exposed gleaming ribs was now pulsing with amalgamated tissue, shark fins protruding from whale blubber, crab legs twitching beneath translucent skin that should have sloughed away weeks ago. Most disturbing was Thanatos' eye. The right one remained intact while the left was a mangled void. That intact eye. Christ, it didn't just stare, it watched. During our third ROV deployment, the pupil dilated when our lights approached. Vasquez insisted it was just a post-mortem reflex. I knew better. That eye tracked our movements with predatory intelligence, recognizing us as something separate, something to be collected. At night, in the cramped confines of our research vessel, the arguments grew heated. The isolation was getting to us, but it was more than that. Something was already working its way into our minds. "It's a complex parasitic organism," Vasquez ranted during our midnight briefing, sweat darkening his collar despite the biting cold of the lab. His hands trembled so violently he had to clasp them behind his back. "The parasites release behavior-modifying chemicals into the water. That's why the scavengers attach and never leave. They're being manipulated, then slowly digested while kept artificially alive." His theory should have been comforting, at least it offered a scientific explanation. But I'd seen the ROV footage from the depths. Science couldn't explain what was happening 30,000 feet below. "You're wrong," Chen whispered, her bloodshot eyes fixed on the thermal imaging scans spread across her workstation. The blue light of the monitors cast deep shadows beneath her eye sockets, making her look like a corpse. Thanatos is growing. Not just in size, in complexity. I've documented a 17-inch increase in mass and evidence of neural activity where there should be none. I felt my stomach twist into knots. That's impossible. Chen smiled, revealing teeth she'd been unconsciously grinding to jagged points. I've triple-checked the measurements. The entity is consuming the scavengers, yes, but not for nutrition. It's incorporating them. Their nervous systems are being rewired to function as extensions of whatever Thanatos truly is. When she pulled up the comparison footage, even Keller gasped. The timestamp from our first deployment showed a massive but recognizable whale carcass. The latest feed revealed something that defied classification, a pulsing, shifting amalgamation of marine life centered around that core leviathan form. Shark fins protruded from surfaces where they had no biological right to exist. Crustacean appendages twitched in perfect synchronization along flanks that had once been smooth blubber. And throughout it all, a network of luminescent filaments pulsed with rhythmic bioluminescence, like a circulatory system, but one that carried information rather than blood. "That's not a whale," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "It never was." Chen leaned forward, her pupils so dilated her eyes appeared black. "You know what's even more terrifying? It's singing." She pressed a button, and the hydrophone recordings filled the lab, a haunting, complex series of calls that penetrated your bones and resonated in the hollows of your skull. But beneath that familiar cetacean song lurked something else, subharmonics that made my fillings ache and my vision blur. Patterns that felt like language. "It's not the whale," Vasquez insisted, smashing his fist against the console. I noticed with horror the raw, bleeding patches on his knuckles where he'd been unconsciously peeling away his own skin. The whale is just a vessel. A vehicle. Whatever's inside it is, communicating. The weeks that followed blurred together in my memory. Sleep became impossible as the whale song grew louder each night, even inland, in our research facility. We weren't just studying Thanatos, it was studying us. Then came the incident with Chen. I found her at 4:30 a.m. in the laboratory, hunched over satellite imagery of the trench. She hadn't slept in 3 days, her skin sallow and stretched tight across her cheekbones. Dark bruises pulled beneath her eyes. "It's calling me," she whispered, not turning around though I'd made no sound. "Can't you hear it? The song is beautiful once you truly listen." "Chen," I approached carefully, noticing the bloody scratches along her forearms, self-inflicted patterns that resembled the bioluminescent filaments we observed on Thanatos. "You need medical attention." She smiled, teeth bared. "What I need is to go back." We all do. We're meant to join with it. To become something greater. When I reached for the emergency alert, she moved with unnatural speed, slamming my head against the metal cabinet. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard her frantic whispers. It showed me things in my dreams, civilizations beneath the waves older than humanity. They worshipped it, you know. Fed it. Joined with it willingly until there was nothing left of them except what Thanatos preserved. I managed to sedate her, but the damage was done. Something had broken in Chen's mind, or perhaps something had been planted there. The medical team diagnosed acute psychosis brought on by isolation and stress. I knew better. Thanatos had touched her thoughts from 30,000 feet below. 2 nights later, she vanished. So did Keller. The facility's night watchman reported seeing them walking toward the shore in perfect unison, their movements synchronized despite being 50 yards apart. The security footage showed their faces, blank, yet somehow ecstatic. By dawn, they had stolen our research vessel and the specialized deep-sea submersible we'd been using to collect samples. "They're going back to it," Vasquez murmured, his voice hollow as we watched the Cassandra's tracking beacon move steadily toward the trench coordinates. "They're going to join it. And they're taking samples of Thanatos tissue with them." The implications hit me like a physical blow. "They're going to spread it." Vasquez nodded, his eyes never leaving the monitor. "It's evolving a new reproductive strategy. Using us as vectors. Within hours, the military intervened, unmarked black helicopters, stern-faced officials in hazmat suits, non-disclosure agreements thrust into trembling hands. They seized our research, quarantined our facility, drew blood samples from everyone. The way they handled everything, they knew exactly what they were looking for. As if Thanatos wasn't the first of its kind they'd encountered. The official report cited equipment malfunction for the loss of the Cassandra. Chen and Keller were declared victims of a tragic diving accident. Their families received folded flags and hollow condolences. Standard protocol for covering up the unthinkable. 3 days later, I found Vasquez in the shower room of our quarantine facility, wrists slashed with a shard of broken mirror. He was still breathing when I reached him, blood pooling black against the white tiles. His eyes found mine, suddenly clear and lucid. "I can hear them," he whispered, his voice gurgling as blood bubbled between his lips. "Chen and Keller. They're still alive down there. Still conscious inside whatever they've become. They're screaming, but their mouths are full of it now. They can't stop screaming." He gripped my wrist with shocking strength, pulling me closer. "It's not the whale," he hissed, his pupils constricting to pinpricks. "The whale is just the lure. The bait. The mask it wears. Whatever is using it, it's ancient. Patient. And it's hungry." His fingers tightened until I felt bones grinding together. "It knows us now. Knows humans exist. And it's found a way to spread beyond the trench." Those were his last words. The official report listed his death as suicide due to psychological trauma. Another convenient lie. That was 4 months ago. I've been held in this medical observation facility ever since, a sterile white room with reinforced doors and constant surveillance. They call it protection. I know it's containment. The doctors come twice daily, drawing blood, performing scans, asking the same questions over and over. "Are you experiencing auditory hallucinations? Visual disturbances? Compulsive thoughts about returning to the ocean?" I lie. Of course I lie. If I told them the truth, about the song that grows louder with each passing night, about the dreams where I swim through midnight waters toward a pulsing mass of fused flesh, about the way my skin sometimes ripples with patterns that match Thanatos' bioluminescent filaments, they'd never let me leave. But I need to leave. Soon. Because something is changing inside me. My body temperature has dropped 3 degrees. Salt crystals form in the corners of my eyes while I sleep. Yesterday, I found a patch of skin on my forearm that no longer feels pain when pricked. And the hunger. God, the constant, gnawing hunger for something I can't name. The orderly who brings my meals, young, nervous, always checking my restraints twice, doesn't notice how I study him. How I measure the distance to the door when he enters. How I test the strength of my restraints each night, finding them weaker as my own strength mysteriously grows. I shouldn't be telling you any of this. They'll punish me if they find out. But someone needs to know what's coming. What's already here, spreading beneath the surface of human awareness. The military thinks they've contained it by quarantining our research team. They're wrong. Last week, I heard the doctors whispering about similar incidents reported along coastlines across the Pacific, missing fishing vessels, bizarre marine life behaviors, beachgoers experiencing collective auditory hallucinations of whale song where no whales exist. It's spreading. Using us. Becoming us. I need to get back to the ocean. Not because I want to stop it, it's far too late for that, but because I need to complete what started in the trench. My body aches with the wrongness of separation. My blood sings with the melody that calls from the depths. Chen and Keller are waiting. Vasquez too, though he took a different path to return. Soon, very soon, I'll join them. And when we do, Thanatos will finally have the key it needs, human cognition, human technology, human access, to breach the final barrier and rise from the depths. The ancient texts were wrong. The great old ones aren't sleeping. They're evolving. Wait, someone's coming. I can hear footsteps in the hall, too many for the regular doctor's visit. They must have been monitoring this conversation somehow. I hear keys in the lock. Heavy boots. Remember what I've told you. Stay away from the ocean. All of it. Even lakes and rivers that feed into it. The water itself is becoming a conduit. And if you ever hear whale song where there should be none, run. Have you had a similar experience? Feel free to share in the comments below. This story is purely fictional. Any resemblance to real events is purely coincidental. If you enjoyed this story, please like and leave a comment. Your support means the world to me.